Magic and Mystery in Tibet by Alexandra David-Neel. This is a continuation of Chapter 7, and I'm sorry that it ended so abruptly last time. My recorder ran out of memory, and here we are. There is a story well known in the Tibetan religious world which illustrates a successive result of this practice. A young man begs the spiritual guidance of a mystic anchorite. The latter wishes him to begin by exercising himself in the concentration of mind. "What kind of work do you usually do?" he inquires of his new disciple. "I keep the yaks in the hills," answers the man. "All right," says the Gomchen, "meditate on a yak." The novice repairs to a cave, roughly fitted up to serve as a habitation. A few such shelters can always be found in the regions inhabited by herdsmen, and settles down there. After some time, the master goes to the place and calls to his pupil to come out of the cave. The latter hears the Gomchen's voice, gets up, and wants to walk out through the entrance of his primitive dwelling. But his meditation has achieved its purpose. He has identified himself with the object on which all his thoughts have been concentrated. He has forgotten his own personality. He feels himself a yak. Now, though the opening is large enough to allow the passage of a man, it is too narrow for a big bull. So while struggling against an imaginary obstacle, the young man answers his guru, "I cannot get out. My horns prevent me." Though deeply respectful of everything connected with religion, Tibetans always retain a keen sense of humor. They do not fail to notice the comic effect that such practices produce when performed by simple-minded novices. The following story was told to me in the course of a tramp with a Nal Jorpa from Gartog, Gartog. After having spent some time with his guru to receive his instruction, a zealous disciple was returning to his hermitage. While walking, he began to meditate, and according to a well-known reverential custom, he imagined his worshipful teacher was seated on his head. After a time, he entered a state of trance in which he felt perfectly sure that he was carrying his lama. A stone, or some other obstacle caused the man to fall, but so strong was his concentration of thought that the shock did not break it. He got up, loudly apologizing. "I beg your pardon, precious one. I am so sorry to have let you fall. I hope you have not hurt yourself. Where are you now?" The good disciple hurried away to examine a ravine nearby in case the lama had rolled into it. Another story about the lama on the head was told to me by Dugpa Lama, and Dugpa is spelled Dugpa, and this is a native of Bhutan. The joke is coarser than the former one and reflects the mind of the sturdy, massive Dugpa hillman. A nun, it is said, was advised by her spiritual teacher to imagine him seated on her head when meditating. She did so accordingly and was so successful that the weight of the venerable lama, who was well-fed, tall, and stout, gave her great pain. Women of all countries, we must believe, are peculiarly clever at finding a way out of their troubles. When paying another visit to her guru, he asked if she had carried out the instruction and imagined that he was seated on her head. "I did, precious one," answered the nun, "and indeed your weight became so painful that I changed places with you and sat on your head instead of myself." One variety of exercises in concentration consists in choosing some kind of landscape, a garden for instance, as the subject of meditation. First, the student examines the garden, observing every detail, the flowers, their different species, the way in which they are grouped, the trees, their respective heights, the shape of their branches, their different leaves, and so on, noting all particulars that he can detect. When he has formed a subjective image of the garden, that is to say, when he sees it as distinctly when shutting his eyes as one looking at it, the disciple begins to eliminate one by one the various details which together constitute the garden. Gradually, the flowers lose their colors and their forms. They crumble into tiny pieces, which fall to dust and finally vanish. The trees also lose their leaves. Their branches shorten and seem to be withdrawn into the trunk. The latter grows thin, becomes a mere line, more and more flimsy, until it ceases to be visible. Now the bare ground alone remains, and from it the novice must subtract the stones and the earth. The ground, in its turn, vanishes. It is said, by the means of such exercise, one succeeds in expelling from the mind all idea of form and matter, and thus gradually reaches the various states of consciousness, such as that of the pure boundless space and that of the boundless consciousness. Finally, one attains to the sphere of void, and then to the sphere where neither consciousness nor unconsciousness is present. And there's a footnote here that says, that is to say, that it is an indescribable state to which the ordinary notions of consciousness and unconsciousness cannot be applied. These 4 contemplative meditations are often mentioned in early Buddhist scriptures and are strongly recognized by all sects as part of the spiritual training. They are called formless contemplations. Many methods have been devised which lead to these peculiar states of mind. Sometimes the latter states are produced by a contemplation absolutely devoid of cogitations, while in other cases they follow a series of minute introspections or are the result of prolonged investigations and reflections regarding the external world. Lastly, it is said that there are people who suddenly reach one or another of these 4 states of mind without any preparation, in any place, or during any kind of occupation. The following exercise has already been briefly described in the story of the man who felt himself to be a yak. However, it includes developments that were unknown to the hero of that story. For instance, the disciple has chosen a tree as an object of meditation and has identified himself with it. That is to say, he has lost the consciousness of his own personality and experiences the peculiar sensations that one may ascribe to a tree. He feels himself to be composed of a stiff trunk with branches. He perceives the sensation of the wind blowing and moving the leaves. He notes the activity of the roots feeding under the ground, the ascension of the sap which spreads all over the tree, and so on. Then, having mentally become a tree, which has now become the subject, he must look at the man who has now become the object seated in front of him and must examine this man in detail. This done, the disciple again places his consciousness in the man and contemplates the tree as before. Then, transferring his consciousness once more into the tree, he contemplates the man. This alternative transposition of subject and object is effected a number of times. This exercise is often practiced indoors with a statue of a stick called a gomching, Gomshing, in brackets, meditation wood. Then there's a footnote, and it says, properly speaking, the gomching is merely a stick at which one gazes to obtain fixity of mind. Obtain fixity of mind. The burning incense stick is a variety of gomching. And then it says, a burning incense stick is also used in an obscure or completely darkened room to dispose the mind to meditation. But I must again lay stress upon the fact that it is not intended to produce a hypnotic state. And I'm going to pause here. And yes, once again, I must apologize for the abrupt ending last time. So, yes. Till soon.